Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So today I am back to do another video celebrating the Her-storyathon, the month-long readathon for March that I'm hosting with Brigittee over at Literarily Smitten, where we celebrate Women's History Month by reading books both fiction and non-fiction that are all to do with historic women and just having a big gush about them. I've previously done a TBR video where I go through my TBR pile, my books that I do already own but haven't read, and pick out a few of those books that are focused on different women of history. I've also done a recommendations video where I've talked about books that I've already read that are on this topic. But for today's video, I wanted to do something similar but different, which is to go through my wish list, books that I do not currently own but have been on my radar that are to do with women in history, and hopefully get recommendations from you if you've read any of these, but also put them on your radar. And we together can get excited about maybe reading them in the future. Basically, this is going to be a video where we go book window shopping. The first book that I'm really quite keen to get is Letters of Great Women, Extraordinary Correspondence from History's Remarkable Women, which is edited by Lucinda Hawksley. This is a book that I actually saw in Daunt Books a few weeks ago, and it is just the most stunning collection of letters. Over 2,000 years of history seen through the eyes of 50 extraordinary women. It is so beautifully put together, and it basically takes an image, a photo of the original letter, but then also transcribes it so that you can read it easily. So from what I can see, you've got letters from Cleopatra, Catherine of Aragon, Mary Anning, Ada Lovelace, Charlotte Bronte, Amelia Earhart, Jane Austen, Harriet Tubman, and Greta Thunberg. It just looks fantastic. The next book I'm really keen to pick up is Why She Wrote, a graphic history of the lives, inspiration and influence behind the pens of classic women writers. This was one that I actually saw at the Bodleian Library gift shop, and I was just flipping through it and thought it was so beautiful, this graphic history of these different women. This is a little bit more narrowed down in its focus. It goes from the 18th to the 20th century, and it's giving short snapshots into the lives of people like Jane Austen, Louisa May Alcott, also Anne Lister, which really excited me, you know, as a native of Halifax. I also don't read many graphic novels, but the idea of a graphic history of these famous women, beautiful. A fiction book that I'm keen to read is The Christie Affair by Nina de Gramont. This was one that I actually talked about in my anticipated releases for January to March. It's one that has just come out and I know is getting quite a lot of buzz, and it's about the disappearance for about 10 days of Agatha Christie, which is still a mystery that has never been uncovered, like where she went, why. Set in 1926, told from the perspective of Agatha Christie's first husband's mistress, and it's all about these two women and their relationship to each other, as well as this mystery of why she disappeared, and it just seems fascinating. Next up, back to non-fiction, we have Women versus Hollywood, The Fall and Rise of Women in Film. This is a book that I actually peer pressured Anna from Read to Me at Midnight to buy, but then myself decided that I was going to wait for the paperback because I'm a bad friend. And this basically does what it says on the tin. It is a history of women's experience in Hollywood over the past century, women fighting against sexism within the film industry and fighting to get the respect that they deserve. I wouldn't say that I'm a massive film buff, but it is something that I am interested in, and particularly looking at it through this perspective of these women struggling to get respect in the workplace. Another book that I found in the Bodleian Library gift shop was Dressed Like a Woman, Working Women and What They Wore, co-authored by Vanessa Friedman and Roxanne. This is more of a photo book, but basically it shows these stunning photos of different women through the past century, going to work, what they wore and why. I think what drew my eye to this was that there is a shot of the America scene from West Side Story and just those beautiful dance costumes. And I think often when it comes to fashion history, I am so focused on like what elite women wore in the 1500s, in the 1800s, but I've never really put much focus into like 20th century women, just working class women and what they wore, and this will really open that up for me. Apparently I get all of my book recommendations from gift shops, because the next book that I found, Goddesses, Whores, Wives and Slaves, Women in Classical Antiquity by Sarah B. Pomeroy, was a book that I actually found in the Roman Baths gift shop in Bath. I think if you're a fan of something like Pandora's Jar by Natalie Haynes, then this might appeal to you, but instead of focusing on fictional women, this is very much focusing on the real life women who lived in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And I think it's very stark from this title, Goddesses, Whores, Wives and Slaves. These were really the only categories that these women could actually fall under, or at least the categories we've perceived these women to fall under in academic writing. How far is this actually true? How far are we oversimplifying the experiences of these women? What do contemporary sources actually reveal about their lives? A couple of queenly biographies that I'm very interested in, because of course it has to be queens for me, are Isabella of Castille, Europe's First Great Queen by Giles Tremlett. I know bits and pieces about Isabella of Castille's life, particularly her marriage to Ferdinand of Aragon and the fact that she was the mother of Catherine of Aragon. But I'd love to get this insight delving into her own life outside of who her husband was and who her daughter was. I feel like this is going to be a female figure that I'm going to have quite complex feelings about, because as fantastic as it is that in the 15th century here was this very powerful woman, there's also the very negative impacts of her reign, namely the Spanish Inquisition and her husband's treatment of the Jewish population of her country. Also, there is Queen Emma and the Vikings, the woman who shaped the events of 1066 by Harriet O'Brien. I'm not a massive early medievalist, but definitely from what I have read about it, Queen Emma of Normandy just seems so incredibly fascinating. Much more so than her two husbands, Ethelred the Unready and Canute. Not only was she married to two kings of England, but she also gave birth to two kings herself, Arthur Canute and Edward the Confessor. She was a woman who you would say was definitely able to play the Game of Thrones. A figure that I'm really interested in, but I haven't really delved too much into in terms of literature, is Empress Sisi, or Elizabeth of Austria. And I would really like to get recommendations of a good biography to go to for her. The two that I have on my wish list are The Lonely Empress by Joan Haslip, as well as The Reluctant Empress, a biography of Empress Elizabeth of Austria by Brigittee Hamann. Actually, looking at that, I think that this is German language, which is not going to be very good for me. But yeah, if you are more knowledgeable about Empress Sisi, do let me know about what biography is a good one to go to for her. Then going back to fiction, we have Margaret I by Danielle Dutton. This is one I've heard recommended, I think by Brigittee herself, as well as Olive over at A Book Olive. I've heard really great things about this from them, but I actually don't know too much about Margaret Cavendish, at least not very in-depth about her life. I know her contribution to women in academia, women's place in the literary world, but I'd love to get more of an insight into her life. And yeah, I think I'm going to leave my wish list there. There are obviously more things that I could talk about. I have a billion and one Tudor things that I could go to, and I'm also really wanting to delve into Empress Matilda fiction, but I'm a little bit anxious to do so. There are 5 fiction books that I have found that are to do with Empress Matilda, and there's part of me that really wants to buy all of them, read them back to back, and then do a video on them, but also I feel like I could very easily get burnt out on that. And if you do have any recommendations for that, I would love to hear from you. As always, do let me know if you've read any of the books that I've spoken about today, and if you have any recommendations for women in history related books that I should read, I'd love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye!